the MS Michigan Man 64 podcast. My name is Brian Wallace, and I am the MS Michigan Man 64. The MS Michigan Man 64 podcast is about chronic disease awareness. I have had multiple sclerosis for the last 27 years. It's an invisible chronic disease that I've been battling for half of my life. I want to share with you what it is like living with the chronic disease from my experiences and the experiences of other chronic disease warriors. We can fight to have a voice to those that want to listen. Together, we can motivate and educate. Hi, welcome to the MS Michigan Man 64 podcast. So today I am sitting down with another MS warrior by the name of Chris. Chris is from the state of Illinois, and Chris has worked on a riverboat since 2005, and he was in the process of getting his pilot's license to be a riverboat pilot. And he started having his symptoms and went through the diagnosis of multiple sclerosis. How are you doing, Chris?
Man, I'm doing well, Brian. I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no problem, Chris. I'm glad that you are here to join me and talk about your journey with multiple sclerosis. So, Chris, you were working on the riverboat, working on your pilot's license when you started going through symptoms. Kind of take us through that journey on how this all happened. And how it's affected your life a little bit.
Life was good. I had bought a house. I was married, had a kid, and out on the boat, I was tying two barges together with a ratchet and a strap, just like normal people do when you work on the river. And I had a heat stroke. The heat stroke took me to the hospital, or my company took me to the hospital. And they diagnosed me with optic neuritis from that. And that's where my journey to being diagnosed with multiple sclerosis started.
Wow. How old were you when all this started going on, Chris?
Oh man, I want to say 28, 29.
29. So you're like right in that range of 18 to 35 when multiple sclerosis is most predominantly diagnosed among us. And so you were just getting started out basically in life, kind of like the way I was when I got diagnosed at 27. How did that affect you, your mental health, and how did you handle that, like getting that diagnosis of multiple sclerosis? What was going through your head?
The diagnosis really bothered me because I wasn't not able to get my pilot's license at that time. And that is a life-changing moment because you go from making $65,000 to $70,000 a year to $150,000 a year at a blink of an eye, with that license.
Yeah.
And I was living like that until diagnosed. Or I had the blessings of living like that until diagnosed. So, it was a life change. And I mean, financially, it was a real big life change because as a family, we were just bought a new car. We had bought a new toy, a side-by-side or something, and maybe my daughter a four-wheeler. I don't remember what exactly. It was young. We were young. But stuff like that, went to the wayside. We had to regroup for a minute.
Yeah, yeah. So the diagnosis of multiple sclerosis affected you being able to get that pilot license. So were you still able to work still on the riverboat after diagnosis, or did it like completely wipe out your career? Or, I mean, take us like...
I'm sorry to interrupt, but it totally wiped out my career. As far as working on the river, it wiped out my career. Yeah. But I worked for a good company that brought me into the office.
Oh, okay.
They brought me into the office. So the knowledge that I had, working out there, they wanted to use me, and they thought I could. So I became I was in a rotational probationary period for every department of our company to see the best fit.
Mm-hmm.
So I worked in like regulatory for a year. I worked in safety for a year. I worked in training for a year.
Mm-hmm.
I did lots of things for the company and ended up in procurement and warehousing. So
Okay.
I was delivery and buying things for our vessels.
Okay. All right. So at least you were still able to earn an income, and you weren't having to rely on our federal government for income. So that's huge. That you did. You didn't call it quits. Right off the rip, and you were still able to earn money. So, what did you get to a point where you weren't able to work?
Now, it's as far as out on the river for the river company. No, they let me retire, get away from there, and I'm on disability now.
Okay.
But it was life changing for sure.
Yeah. I mean, it's life changing in every aspect. I mean, you're married at the time, and how did your wife react to the news that you got multiple sclerosis? Because I was married.
Well,
I was married also when I got diagnosed too, and I know that's a life changing thing for a spouse too. How did your?
No, I wanted to ask. Yeah, I'm glad you brought it up. I really am glad you brought that up because I wanted to ask you. I ignored it, so she ignored it. I took my Copaxone, and what was cool was our daughter together was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes when she was 5 years old,
Mm-hmm.
and I chose to go on Copaxone at that time to take the shots with her. So I would take a shot and she would, it was just kind of, Dad did it. So it was cool for her to do it.
Yeah.
And I did really good things on Copaxone. I mean, I like that.
Yeah. I was on that drug too. And that was probably my best DMT. I think I made it like 15 years really strong on Copaxone until I had a bad crash.
I had a bad crash on it, and they took me off of it, and that's when I went on Tysabri.
Okay, all right. How did you do on Tysabri?
Oh man, I loved it. I'm an outdoorsman, so I'm a hunter fisher. I like to do everything I can outdoors.
Mm-hmm.
And the mosquitoes did not bite me. Like I could walk through, I think I could have walked through the Amazon jungle and a mosquito wouldn't touch me while I was on it. I don't know why.
Really?
That was the only benefit I ever got from it, though, Brian. That was the only benefit.
That was the benefit you got out of Tysabri. I was on Tysabri too. I was on Tysabri too for a couple of years, but I can't. I don't have any recollection of mosquitoes not biting me. That's pretty funny, though. I mean, that's a good side effect, if you ask me, because I can't stand getting bit up by those things. That's awesome. So where did you?
That was. I mean, like I said, I had no problems with it. It was good for me. It just stunk that I could only take it for a year.
Yeah. And how come you ended up not being able to continue taking Tysabri?
Oh, the Justin Cunningham virus, the JC virus.
Okay.
Yeah, I became positive. I showed up positive for that, and they took me off of it because it can kill me.
Gotcha. So let me. I
think all of the meds can. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you know what? And that's where you were kind of leading me into this next question. That's what I was going to ask you, because I was on Tysabri too, and when I first started, and it was a new drug when I started taking it. It might have been out maybe a year. And when I first started reading the side effects of that drug, and I'm reading about PML, that scared the shit out of me.
Yes, sir.
And I was hesitant. I was hesitant to take that drug. And I went to my neurologist and I'm like, what's this PML thing, and he started explaining it to me. And I ended up, going on the drug, but that was always in the back of my mind. And I remember one time I actually thought that I was having a PML attack, and I called my neurologist, and I said to him, I messaged him, and he called me, and I said, Doc, man, what would be the signs if I had PML? He said, Brian, we wouldn't be talking to each other right now. and I'm just like, what do you mean? He goes, yeah, you'd be on the floor. And I'm like, okay, well then that's a good thing. I don't have PML. And, I mean, the bottom line is that he was telling me you can't stress about that. And after I had that conversation with him, I kind of let go of that fear of the PML. Because it's like winning the lottery if something like that happens to you. And I think you have a better chance of walking across the street and getting hit by a car.
Tysabri made me feel so good while I was on it that I begged my doctor for it. I said, I don't care if PML, oh well, who cares? I'm going to die one day anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, that drug really did make me feel the best out of any of the drugs I've taken since I've been diagnosed.
Yeah. So when they had to take you off that drug, what'd they end up putting you on after that?
Oh man, the one in the pill. It was a pill capsule you took twice a day. I don't remember what it's called.
Gilenya, maybe?
Yes, Gilenya.
Okay. All right. How'd you do on that one?
I don't want to even talk about it. I'm embarrassed, but I'll be a man. That was in the middle of my divorce, and I refused to take it. I had probably a case of them laying around, and I didn't take them.
Oh, jeez.
Okay. That probably helped. That probably helped put me in the wheelchair, because that's when that stress and not taking that med. That's when I was in a wheelchair. I couldn't stand.
Oh, jeez. And let's start talking about that. Because I'm in the same boat as you. I went through a divorce. Which there's no such thing as a good divorce. Most divorces.
Amicable.
Yeah, most divorces.
Amicable.
Yeah. I know. I know that time period for me was so stressful, and I knew it was going to be a challenge for my multiple sclerosis, and it was. It took 4 or 5 years to catch it. I went through my divorce in 2010, 11, and by 2015, that's when I became dependent on a cane. And it just that was like the start of the spiral. And that's a stress, and stress is just such a negative thing for us people with chronic diseases. Whether it's multiple sclerosis or whatever it is, stress is just a killer.
I try to tell any and everybody to walk away from stress, no matter how bad it is or what you can or can't do. Try to walk away from it.
Yeah.
It's the worst thing in the world.
Yeah. And I wish that I knew that when I was in my 30s and 40s, because I would have handled...
Me and you both, man.
I would have...
Me and you both.
Yeah. I would have handled stress so much differently back then. Back then, I didn't... I refused counseling. I refused antidepressants. It was just, you're young and stupid and you think you're invincible. And it was a very big mistake I made when I was young with this disease, is not taking care of my mental health.
I refused counseling as well. Until my ex-wife told me during the divorce that I was a narcissist. So I went to a counselor to figure out how I could fix my narcissism.
Okay.
And the counselor started laughing at me, and he was like, man, he said, look, he said, Chris, you wouldn't be sitting here with me today if you were a narcissist. He said, you're not. So, yeah, I had to refigure that one out.
Wow. So you said you refused your mental health treatment, and then you started to get on board with it. So did they put you on medication to help you out with that?
They did, but I refused the medication because I'm 48 years old. I'm 49 now, but I was 48 when I was divorced or diagnosed. Sorry, the D word, it kind of streamed together. But I was diagnosed with ADHD and bipolar 1 when I was 48 years old. And I refused both medications because I don't want to take them. Yeah. If I've lived till I was 48 years old and I've figured it out, why do I want to take it now? I'm scared of what it'll do to me.
Okay. I can understand that. I mean, yeah, you're 48, 49 years old.
I mean, I know my triggers. I know, and that's what they are now. You know, I know what bothers me, or I know what, where I facilitate to, or, you know, what makes me feel normal. Mm-hmm. So I try not to, I don't know. I mean, I try not to have the same failures that I can remember.
Hey,
and don't do those things over again. That was my best learning lesson.
I get it, man. So you went through your divorce, and I know when I went through my divorce, the whole dating world was completely new to me. I hadn't been around it for 17 years, and it was an experience. How did that go for you when after your divorce? I mean, I know some people are like, you know, I'm never getting married again. I'm never dating anybody again. Screw this, screw that. How did you handle that after your divorce?
Well, I'm still at the I'm never going to get married again stage.
Okay.
But then not in a bad way. I would love to be married, and I'm in a relationship now. We've been in a relationship for 2 years, mm-hmm. and she is a very good woman, and she's good to me.
Awesome.
I don't want to get married under the government's watch anymore. That bugs me. In God's eyes, heck yeah, let's go do it. We'll stand on a beach. We'll have whoever there. But I don't want to have to sign a piece of paper I don't want to pay money to get married, and I don't want to pay money to be divorced.
I understand that, brother. I understand that. So when you started dating her, when in your relationship, did you let her know that you had this disease, multiple sclerosis, and what was her reaction when you guys first met and you told her?
She knew right off the bat, because I tell people as soon as they meet me, I'm upfront and honest about everything, Brian. Mm-hmm. And we can blame it on ADHD or bipolar, whichever. but I do. I talk too much sometimes. Here's the weird thing. She knows me and has known me since she was in 3rd grade, and I was in 7th grade.
Okay.
I started looking. I was on Facebook dating, of course. That's where everyone goes.
Yeah.
And I had dated 4 or 5 different people in different counties, different states even. And I seen her on Facebook dating, and I remember her, you know, I remember her name and I remember her family. Mm-hmm. And I started talking to her, and after talking to her, we both just kind of knew.
So, I mean, how does she support you as far as your multiple sclerosis goes? I mean, does she understand, like, the possibilities of what if this happens? I can be, you know, in a wheelchair. Yeah, I mean, how does she understand all that?
Yes, sir.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I include her in all of my major decisions like that, and I tell her any and everything that's coming up or whatnot. I wasn't able to walk because the state of Illinois would not give me the medication that once my insurance is changed, I was able to go back to Vanderbilt, Tennessee, or Nashville, Tennessee, the hospital of Vanderbilt. That's where I used to go.
Mm-hmm.
And she actually didn't go to the hospital to visit her dad one day to take me to Vanderbilt to see if they would give me medication for this. And they did. And I was up and walking 4 days later out of my wheelchair.
Wow. That is awesome.
So, I mean, she doesn't understand the love that I have for her or the credit that I give her for the little things like that.
Yeah.
But I hope one day that I can show her. I hope one day she understands.
I believe she understands, Chris. That's just an awesome story. And, you know, it is so important to have that support when you're battling this chronic disease, you know. And I understand that not everybody has a boyfriend, girlfriend, or a husband and wife, but I mean, it's just got to be you got to have somebody in your life that cares and is willing to help you out when you need it. And it's just such a huge help to anybody with a chronic disease to have somebody that understands it like that.
You need somebody in your corner, man. You really do.
Yeah.
You definitely need somebody in your corner.
Yeah. And the more you can get, the better, you know, whether it's a spouse, boyfriend, girlfriend, you know, a kid, friend, it doesn't matter. Even if it's a pet, if you got a pet in your corner.
Neighbor.
Yeah. A neighbor.
It don't matter.
Yeah. Yeah. You said you have 2 kids. I have 2 kids too. And my kids have known me their whole life with multiple sclerosis. How have your kids come to understand and deal with their dad having a chronic disease?
My kids it didn't really even bother them or even, I don't think they even realized it or knew about it. You know, I mean, of course we discussed it in doctor's appointments, this, that, and the other, but I don't think they paid attention until I was actually disabled. So that was 2018. That was, my son would have been 16 and my daughter was like 14, okay. 11, or 13. So, I mean, they were young.
Yeah. And those are hard years too. You know, I mean, when you're a teenager, because my kids were young too, you know, they were like 9 and 12, maybe 13. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. No, you're fine. That's when I started to get a lot worse. They knew me pre, 2015 when I was good, and I think it was like a different world to them when I started to digress, and they had to absorb that. And that's like the challenges that a lot of people face too with their kids is how to explain the MS to their kids.
Yeah, both of my kids kind of, I think, I can't say it and be honest about it because I don't know. They've never told me. But as a dad looking at them, I think they're both embarrassed. I think they're both, they both know that I'm getting worse and it's hard for them to accept, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
They love their dad. They love me to death, but they know I'm not the same guy I was yesterday.
Yeah.
And that's hard. That's hard for them to deal with at their age.
Yeah, it is. It's hard. I get it. My kids now are 22 and 26, and it's a difficult thing at any age to understand. And some kids get it, some kids don't. But us as the parent, all we can do is explain and hope that they kind of get on board with us to be there for us.
No, my girlfriend has 3 children. She has a 22-year-old daughter. She has an 18-year-old son and a 17-year-old son. And those 3 kids love me to death. They're here in and out of my life on the daily, if that makes sense. They're constantly doing something around mom's house or in my house, where I live and where their mom lives.
Man, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. That's awesome that they just basically they opened their arms and accepted you too. Because I mean, you were an outsider coming into their world, and they just accepted you in. That's awesome.
Right. And I'm not easy to accept.
Yeah, none of us guys are easy to accept, Chris.
No, we're not. And just me having the wheelchair and I'm not in it all the time. I'm not hardly in it at all now. Yeah. I used to live in a single story duplex. It was all flat, no problems. And I loved it. I was there for 4 years. But I physically knew I could not and would not mentally keep going to physical therapy.
Yeah.
So my girlfriend and I moved in together and rented a house that has 14 steps up and 14 steps to the basement. And I am walking now. I am able to go outside and lift my leg. I walk up these stairs. I'm doing it, my friend. I'm doing it.
Yeah, that is so awesome, Chris. And to think that you went from wheelchair and now you're out walking around, and I know you got pets, you got a dog, you got cats, and you're not letting MS stop you one bit. You're kicking its ass every day. Every day you get up and you attack it.
Yeah, I can't let it have me, man. I'm still here for something. I don't know what yet, but I'm here for something.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me ask you this before we start wrapping it up. You haven't, you don't seem like you've ever given up any kind of hope, and you just seem like such a positive person. And I just want to know, how do you keep your mental health up, and how do you get up every day and attack this disease, knowing that what it's taken from you, but you're still, you just have the attitude you know what, I'm going to keep going. What gives you that drive to keep going, Chris?
Because I know people have it worse than I do. Yeah. And every day, multiple sclerosis gets worse. And one of these days, I'm not going to be able to get out of my bed on my own. Yeah. I'm not going to be able to go down the stairs or go up the stairs. And I've already lived that. I've already been through that for a year.
Yeah.
I'm not letting it take over again. So I wake up every day, and I am ready to go.
Yeah.
I want to do any and everything I can. And I look back and wish I would have never sat down and taken a day and say, I can do it tomorrow.
Yep. Amen, brother. I am so with you on that. I actually get out of bed every day, and, I'm happy that I got out of bed every day. I when I was able to work, people would come up to me at work and, they'd ask me how I'm doing, and I'd be like, I'm great, man. I got out of bed today. And a lot of people would look at me like I'm crazy. They'd be like, okay, well, why are you happy about that? You do that every day. Well, no, not everybody that has MS does that every day. I appreciate the fact that I got up and got out of bed today.
Right. I worked part-time for a minute at Walmart, and I'm laughing because I was the guy that was a cashier. Okay. So I'm a part-time cashier. I'd be there real early in the morning, and, some guy would have to go to the men's bathroom, and I'd have those little dude wipe, they're just a package of singles, but I'd have them in my pocket, and I'd always hand them to people going in the bathroom. Oh, man.
That's
I bet
awesome.
Some men were like, I ain't using that shit in my bed. What are you talking about? I ain't using that on my bed.
That's awesome. That's
But
hilarious.
it's just one of those funny things, man, because when you have MS, you notice everything around you. It's almost like the real world slows, or you slow down, but the real world stays at its speed and you kind of see it, if that makes sense.
No, I absolutely, I can relate to that. I tell people all the time, I actually appreciate life just better since I've gotten diagnosed because I watch things because I'm slow, you know? So I sit there and I watch how things go, how things work.
We've slowed down and we're able to appreciate life.
Yeah.
That's what happened.
Yeah. Absolutely, man. Absolutely. I appreciate so many small things in life now that I never would have appreciated when I was in my, late 20s, 30s. And it's all because of MS that I appreciate those things now. So, I mean, MS sucks. And MS has done a lot to me that I hate about it. But there are some very positive things that I appreciate that MS has given me throughout these 27 years, if that makes sense to you.
Right. Oh, me too.
Yeah. So, Chris, and no, go ahead, man.
It's had its positives and its minuses. I mean, it really is. It's a crazy disease.
Yeah. And the bottom line is that you just can't quit. And no matter what this disease throws at you, you can't quit. If you lose the use of something, okay, adjust to it and keep going. If you lose the ability to walk a straight line, okay, adjust to it. Use a cane. Mm-hmm. If you lose the ability to walk, okay, adjust to it and use a wheelchair but still continue to live your life. Don't stop.
Brian, I was on vacation once and I was down in, oh my gosh, I was in Florida somewhere and I was talking to a gentleman and he had a prosthesis. He had he lost his leg. Mm-hmm. And that was in the time of my multiple sclerosis when my right leg was really I was dragging it everywhere. That's what I had to do.
Yeah.
And so it was dead weight. And I asked him, I said, man, I want to cut this thing off. I said, I wish I had one of those. I said, it's got to be lighter, this, that, and the other. And he looked at me dead square in the face and he told me, he said, I wish I still had it.
Yeah.
So it made me look at my life or my leg and multiple sclerosis a little different too.
Yeah. Yeah. I get it.
Because I go head to head with people, man. I don't bear to wait. I don't read about questions. I ask people questions, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I want to know about the situation and yeah. I mean, has MS bothered you so much that you can't use one of your legs yet?
No, I can't walk without a cane. Sometimes I have to use.
Sure.
Sometimes I have to use a walker, depending on the distance. And if it's a real long distance, I have a wheelchair. I usually self-ambulate my wheelchair. But my son or my daughter will push me every now and then, or even my wife. But I just adjust to however I have to do it to get to where I need to go.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that was right in the middle of when my right leg was a straight drag. I mean, there was no movement to it. I had to drag it in everywhere. So it was just one of those frustrating times. Yeah. I was on vacation. I was with people and in line with him, I think for ice cream. Yeah. And I straight up asked him, I'm like, man, what do you think? I want to get rid of mine and have one of those. And he said, no, dude. He said, never. Yeah. He said, one day you might be able to use yours. He said, I could never use mine.
Yeah.
So it definitely gave me a different perspective.
Yeah, absolutely it does, that's true with anything. I mean, whether it's your hand, arm, whatever it is, man, it puts things into perspective that it can always be worse. I'm friends with a guy over in the UK, and the guy is one of the most positive guys I've seen. And MS took the ability of him to talk. I mean, he literally does not have a voice anymore. So that's one of the biggest reasons that I started doing this podcast was for people like him that don't have a voice, that lost it because of this disease, so that people understand this.
Yeah, some people don't even realize that you can lose your voice over it,
Yeah, absolutely, man. Hey, Chris, I really want to thank you for joining me today. I appreciate everything that you told us about your journey, and I would love to have you on again at a later date, just to get a follow-up how things are going with you. I just love your attitude with the way that you attack this disease, and you just, it doesn't matter what it does to you. You just figure it out, man. Figure it out.
It's not just this disease, Brian. It's life. That's how I have had to do it.
Yeah.
I attack it and figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's it.
I appreciate you, brother.
No problem, man. I appreciate you inviting me. I like talking.
Yeah, so do I, man. So do I. All right, I'm gonna get going. Yeah, go ahead.
It definitely helps us all learn. It helps us figure it out. And something might work better for you that might work better for me, and we got to figure it out and share it with each other. So.
Yeah. I mean, everybody's MS is different, man. My way's not your
That's
way,
right.
and your way's not my way. But between all of us, we can figure this shit out.
Yes, sir. I appreciate the invite up, Brian. I totally hope that you invite me back up.
Yep, absolutely, my friend, absolutely. All right, this is MS Michigan Man 64. I am going to get going. Do not forget to hit the follow or subscribe button at the bottom. If you have any comments, please leave them, and hit the like button. And I will talk to you on the next episode.